Thank you for having me.
So I'm excited today. Once again, we have gone virtual with a certain age, but I'm still bringing these amazing women and celebrating the things they do and helping you elevate your life through their knowledge. So today, as I mentioned, we have Patty Lennon. And just a little bit of on her background. Patty is a keynote speaker and a best-selling author. She helps women create space for magic in their lives and businesses. Patty is a former type A corporate banker, but she opened up her gifts when she was 35. Her dad passed away, and the events that followed revealed a deep connection between intuition and the amount of abundance, support, and love that we're willing to allow into our lives. She founded the Receiving School to help others open up their own receiving energy using a blend of common sense, brain science, and a dash of magic. So I love that bio. That's a wonderful thing because I think it encompasses so much of our lives. There's the real serious part, and I see you were a type A, and it goes all the way to just letting things happen. Let's jump back in your life where this all started. You were a type A. Can you tell me, because a lot of us have been there, a lot of us started there. What was your early corporate life like?
Yeah, so I just always loved getting A's. Like I loved following the rules. I loved succeeding. Like I was built for any structure you put, I could thrive inside of it. The more rules, the better, because the easier it was for me to figure out how to succeed. And so banking just became this like place where I just I just had so much fun. It was like, you just do the next thing and do the next thing and, follow all the rules and do it better and work longer and succeed. And yeah, that was me.
Yeah, and I can see that it's also confining, right? Because you're stuck in those rules.
Right. Like from this perspective that I'm in, I can look back on myself and see that, but I wouldn't have understood that back then.
At the time, you just thrived in structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. And I think a lot of us do thrive in structure, but I know corporate life doesn't last forever. How did that end for you?
So towards the end of my time at Citibank, because I was there the whole 15 years, people had always kind of been jealous that I got promoted, right? Or that I got, why does she get the better project? Why does she get the advancement, whatever it was? And towards the end of that journey, it became really clear to me through some events that happened, through some mentors of mine, that they just misunderstood they didn't understand what I was doing. And that I had an opportunity to show people what I did to create my opportunities. So I started putting a lot of time into that role as a mentor. And I loved it. I loved it so much. And the more I understood about individual sort of what motivated people, like not everyone was motivated like I was, and I could explain to them using their motivation how to get what they wanted. It was just so exciting to see people excelling that had once believed that they had some glass ceiling over them that someone else didn't. So I had convinced the bank, my best sales job ever, I convinced the bank to pay for my master's in psych. And I had intended to continue using my master's inside the company. But during that time, coaching started to become like a really prevalent field, especially career coaching.
All right. And can I just ask you, because I know people sometimes talk about, I should go for my next degree, I should do my next big thing. So your company made it possible for you to take the next step and get your master's degree.
Yep, they did. And that's very unusual. So
okay, yeah. So I think it's an opportunity that people need to be aware that you gotta ask, right? You get to go to your company if you want to do the next thing. It's worth asking, and you were successful.
Right. And you also have to understand what's in it for someone else. Like just because I wanted to get a master's in psych, that's not relevant to my boss. Right. And so I showed him how 3 people I had mentored were now producing different levels of results. There was different levels of satisfaction. That one of the keys to me doing that was understanding their motivations, but I really didn't understand that at a deep level, that a master's in psych would allow me to do that, as well as take that into my sales job. And that if I had this background, that I really could then use it to increase sales. So I took what their goals were and showed them how paying for this would make sense.
So you were really using your sales skills then, right? You sold, you sold the idea.
Yes.
All right. So I'm sorry. So you have your degree. Now talk more, I guess, about coaching.
Yeah. So coaching started to become more of a thing in the world. And the more I read about it and saw it, I just felt that, you know what, I think I want to be doing this full time. As much as I like selling, I love helping people understand they can have the kind of career. At that time, that was my focus, the career, they can achieve the results, anything they can desire can be theirs. Like I really felt it. And so I decided I'm going to go get my coaching certification and eventually leave. And by a twist of fate, my division was acquired and there was some paperwork issues. They made a mistake and they, by mistake, gave me a severance package. And that was a 1-year severance package. And that was sort of my ticket to leave. So I left at that point.
All right. That's amazing. I didn't even realize your 1-year severance was a clerical error.
Mm-hmm. So the company that was acquiring us refused to use the HR people in our company. They said, we don't want your help. And because I've been with the company for so long, my title didn't really explain what I did. And when you've been with a company for 15 years, you sort of get this evolutionary title that's like so weird, but everyone in the company understands that you're vital. But coming in from the outside, you look like a made up position. So right. The HR people assumed I was one of those fluff positions, and they included me in the non-essential people. And because of my time in city, that added up to a 1-year severance. Within 4 hours of word getting out that I had gotten my severance package, people were like, well, who's going to do this? And who's going to do this? And who's going to do this? And they were like, oh my gosh. And they called me in and they were like, we made a mistake. But once you have it in your hands, they can't take it back. So
best mistake ever, right? It gave you this opportunity to launch. So what was it like to launch your own coaching company?
You know, it was exhilarating and it was scary as hell. And I can still to this day remember perseverating over whether I should spend $45 on business cards. Like remembering like, oh my God, are they perfect yet? Like, do I invest the $45 now? Now I know there's like Vistaprint. I could have gotten them for $0. So I'm not sure why I was paying $45 for them. But I remember it being like so stressful. Like, was I doing it right? So I definitely went in without any of the skills as a business owner I needed. So it was scary for sure. It was exhilarating. It was fun. It was heart-wrenching. You know, it was all the things. It was cats.
Right. It's the crazy roller coaster that is entrepreneurialism, the super highs, the super lows. But now, so you had this padding. Did that feel good that you had all this money, I guess, really just to coast? Was it easy for you to coast through that first year?
I wouldn't have thought that I was coasting, but now that I know what it looks like to be an actual business owner, I was coasting. You know, like I thought I was doing all the things. You know, I had this mentality that like I followed my calling, like I'm doing God's work. I mean, not literally, but like, you know, I'm doing the good stuff now. So I'm going to show up and do the stuff. And then I sort of like without realizing thought God was going to take care of the sales and marketing. Like I didn't think I had to worry about that. But I did. And by the end of that year, I realized I hadn't made any money and the severance package was gone. And
so you were making 6 figures and now you made
$2,000.
$2,000 for a whole year.
For a whole year. And I didn't even know it until my accountant gave us the tax return.
And you realized you got nothing. Okay. But I think it went downhill from there. So you had a lot more things going on in your life, which made it really hard. What else was going on?
Well, so that year actually wasn't. So I hired a coach to teach me actually how to run a business. And I did start, you know, building up some momentum. And I decided, you know, I needed a real brand. So I did the work to create the brand. And it was at the time, it was called Mom Gets a Life. So at that point, I had realized like my whole work, forget these career people, it was moms. They needed to get a life, right? Like I needed to show them how to get a life. And I was going to launch the next year. I was launching it on Mother's Day. That was Sunday. That Friday, my husband was let go and he was out of work for the following 2 years. My kids were 2 and 4 at the time. And soon after that, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And then over the course of 2 years, degenerated. And I was her primary caretaker during, you know, the difficult periods, which I'd say had probably encompassed about 15 of those 24 months from her diagnosis to her death.
And you were still you were still running your business through all this? Or, I mean, you had no option, I guess, at this point.
No option because my husband wasn't working. Yeah.
Right. And now I know you said your mentor gave you a goal. How did that goal work for you?
Yeah. So one thing I will say that I always did after that point that I realized I didn't know how to run a business was, even as difficult as things were, I always had a mentor coach. Like I always kept my mentor coach. And so I was growing that business. One of the things I knew was the key to my success that I did uniquely well was speak. But I wasn't speaking a lot. I wasn't getting a lot of speaking engagements. And so I said that to her, like, why can't I get these engagements? And she said, become so good, they can't not have you on their stage. And I was like, that sounds awesome. How do I do that? And she was like, do 50 speaking gigs in 50 weeks. And I was like, okay. And so I set out on that journey. And what's so fascinating about that is, when I was trying to get like 2 or 3 speaking engagements, I was like, I don't even know where I'd find them. Like, I don't know. But as soon as I knew I had to get 50, a different part of my brain kicked in. And I started generating opportunities. And so I was booking keynotes almost immediately. And they were for months out. But so I started booking keynotes.
And how did you do that? I mean, you had this mindset change, but how does that work practically? Did you just start calling people you knew, or like, what was your secret?
Yeah, well, I did everything. So one thing I did was immediately I created my own event, because to me, being the rule follower, right? Like I was like, okay, what are the rules? So it's just that if I have a stage with an audience, that counts. So if I create my own event, and I do that monthly, then that's 12 right there. So there's 12. So I did that. And 2 of my keynotes actually got booked from my first event, where I spoke to an audience I had created. And I said, by the way, I'm looking to do more keynotes if anyone knows anyone. And those were introductions from that. So I always tell people the best place to get booked for speaking is from the stage. That is your number one opportunity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you're doing it, right? So now, all right. What was your turning point? You had mentioned that you had a really, like a pivotal keynote. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So the very first keynote I booked. So the thing is, when you're booking, places are typically booking 1 year in advance, 6 months in advance. So when I got booked early on, it still wasn't for 6 months from then. And my mom had bought a ticket to that event. By the time it came time for me to be doing that keynote, my mom was dying May into June, which is a very big conference season, right? So a lot of my keynotes were clustered right around there. And so she was really on her literal deathbed, and I wanted to be with her. So I had canceled all of the other keynotes, but that one I couldn't cancel because she had bought a ticket to that event to see me, and she knew it was happening. And she had said to me, you're going. Like, don't even think of not going. And all her friends had bought tickets too. So I had like this cheering section of my mom's golden girls in the front row. So I knew I had to do it. And I had always operated from this theory that we are only required to do our 100%. We do our 100% and the universe will take over. God will take over, source, whatever your word is, that there is this force that is with us. And so if we do our 100%, we can hand the baton off. And so that night, when I was getting ready to get up on stage for the keynote, I really still wasn't sure how I was going to deliver this. I mean, I was heartbroken. And so as I was getting dressed, I'm like, okay, my 100% right now is I can get dressed. I can get dressed. And then I got in the car and I'm like, okay, my 100%, I can get to the place. And then I got to the place and I was like, okay, I can get on stage, but I don't know that I can do anything past that. And I really didn't. And as I was climbing the steps to the stage, I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? And I just kept saying, you're 100%. And I was like, okay, God, you got to take it from here. I honestly really believed, and I think this is the key to surrender, I really believed I was going to get up there and have to apologize to everyone and tell them that my mom was dying and that I actually couldn't deliver the talk. That was a real possibility to me. And I think people need to understand that surrender really requires you to embrace failure as one of the options. And then I walked across the stage and I got to the mic, and the most incredible keynote came through me. And I knew in that moment, that was the moment that changed everything for me, because it was the moment where I knew for sure that I wasn't alone. As much faith as I had always had in my life, that was the actual tangible experience of knowing full well that me as this human never could have delivered that keynote. And I have never once wondered if I was in it alone since then.
Wow, that's powerful, and what a moment. And how has your life gone since then? So that was your moment, and I have a feeling that was the beginning of your climb. Is that right?
Yeah, and so one of the things that I had done during that 50 speaking gigs challenge was I announced that I was going to do a conference, because I also knew that the bigger the stage that you already took, the bigger the gigs that you could get. And so if I created an event for, at the time it was 150 people in New York City, I booked a place right next door to Rockefeller Center called the 3 West Club. So I booked a conference in the middle of New York City, took a total leap of faith. And I don't think I ever would have done that if I hadn't experienced that moment.
And this is one you created yourself. This was your conference.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that moment of originally on the keynote, knowing I wasn't alone, kind of gave me the courage. I had already sort of said I was going to do this, but that gave me the courage to just keep going forward with it and say that I was going to do it. And ultimately, so the bill for that conference was going to be $45,000, the budget. And I was the only, at that point, my husband didn't have a job. He did actually get a job soon after my mom passed. So we were back to a 2-income family, but the time I committed to this, we weren't. And so I was looking for ideas on how I could make that happen. And crowdfunding had become a thing, Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And so I launched a crowdfunding campaign. I became one of the best-selling crowdfunding campaigns at that time for Indiegogo. So they featured me in their social media and on their homepage. And so that led to a book deal. So I produced a book on how to crowdfund, and I got a huge number of keynotes just talking about crowdfunding and what it looked like to succeed at crowdfunding. And then I went on to do the sold out conference at Rockefeller Center. So that gave me a whole other level of visibility. Mm-hmm. And then, everything sort of that year was just changed everything.
That's amazing. So really, well, I guess your knowledge created the book, and then the book in turn gave back to you and created your speaking platform. Is that?
Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I mean, I left the crowdfunding piece behind a long time ago, mm-hmm. but it did give me that, it gave me like a huge swoosh of momentum. And then the conference itself just gave me, I mean, we got, I was able to get sponsorships from major banks. I got sponsorships from jewelry companies. Ann Taylor sponsored my wardrobe for 3 years. Wow. It was crazy. And I have to say, I did not come to the table with anything special to get all of this. It was literally just take the step in front of you, have faith. Ignore the fact that reality says you cannot do this thing.
Okay, but it sounds like a lot of this didn't fall into your lap. You went after each component and just made it happen. Yes,
I made everything happen, but I want to be clear that none of it was because I had something in my back pocket, right? Anyone can have what they desire, but they really do have to do the thing in front of them, even if it seems outrageous that they'd be able to accomplish it.
They have to give their 100%. Mm-hmm. All right. So now what are you doing? What are you doing now? So I know you're helping women now. Mm-hmm. Who do you help and how do you help them?
So after that year, I really did focus. on women who had children, but not that necessarily considered themselves moms. Like they didn't identify strictly as moms. They were and are money earners and feel an unusual burden in their life. So they tend to take on more than most. They're overgivers, perfectionists, control freaks, me. They either have businesses or they're balancing their corporate life. And how I help them is grow their wealth by balancing out the receiving that they're doing.
Okay. Now, what's an overgiver? You mentioned they're overgivers.
So an overgiver is someone who gives beyond giving from joy. So an overgiver is someone who gives past the point that they're giving from their overflow, and they start to dig down deep into their well. It's the person that doesn't say no when they're asked to do something, even though they want to say no. It's the person that picks up their kids' clothes, even though they already told their kids they were supposed to pick them up. It's the person that's exhausted and knows they need to go to bed, but then makes that last call to their friend because they are afraid that their friend is struggling, even though they're not tapping into the fact that they don't have that to give right now. They have an unrealistic belief that they are the person for more people than they have to be.
Okay, so it's coming from them. I mean, people are asking of them, but I can see that these are women who just deplete themselves. Is that okay?
Yeah. I would say it's most women in the US.
All right. So we're all depleters.
Well, what it is that we're all socialized from a young age to believe that when we take care of another person, we're good. And when we ask for something, we're bad. And so it's really a socialization habit. And unless you are born a rebel, which there is a portion of the population that's naturally rebellious, if you're born a rebel, you don't typically buy into your socialization, but everyone else tends to do it on some level. And when people come to me, a lot of times it's because they want raises, they want to sell more in their business, they want to grow financially. And what I always say is you don't have a selling problem, you have a receiving problem.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, we'll take business owners, right? And let's say you're having a selling problem. So many people think I need to learn how to sell better. Or if I'm looking for a raise, I need to know how to go get the raise, right? Mm-hmm. But really what it is there's this deep resistance to actually receiving at a level that's equal to what you give. And that's an energetic relationship. And so you can think it's just about money, but always it's about everything. And so if you think you're going to somehow receive a lot of money in your business, but then you're going to go back into your personal life and you're just going to keep giving and giving and giving and not receiving in equal amounts, it just doesn't work like that. It just won't happen. And so you can hire the best sales coaches in the world. You can learn to be the best salesperson ever. You can be like nailing interview left and right. And the money just won't flow in because the energy isn't there to let it.
So what are I guess, so first of all, you said you deal with women like 45 to 55,
yeah,
right, who are these overgivers. What are some of the steps that they need to take to stop doing that and to allow to receive?
So real tactical first step, which is a super hard one, is to have a complaining detox, to stop complaining.
I thought you were going to say, let's dump on somebody. We have to stop. Okay.
Right. You stop complaining altogether. What you can have, though, is accurate feelings. So if someone's like, your husband comes home and he's like, what's for dinner? And you're like, I just worked all day, right? Like that's what you're saying in your head. And you're like, you're an A. Well, I won't curse on this because I just realized we're going to, you're
on TV. You're a jerk.
You're a jerk. But you're saying that in your head. What you want to do is not say that in your head and really go to what feels accurate for you. So if I'm not going to complain about this guy, what do I feel? And what I feel is that I'm not being respected. Right now, I feel disrespected and I feel hurt and I feel invisible and I need to feel visible. And from that accurate perception, then you can take action and speak to someone, your husband, let's say, and say, look, here's what just happened. I worked all day. You worked all day. And when you said to me, what's for dinner? What I heard is Your job is to work and to take care of dinner. And that feels really unbalanced to me. That doesn't feel respectful in our marriage. And I need this balanced. And so then that goes across all areas of your life is if you stop complaining, but you allow yourself to feel what you're truly feeling, you will start to see really clearly where off-balanced relationships are happening. And that's usually the first doorway to receiving.
That's really interesting. I never thought about it that way, that I guess complaining in a way is blocking the real problem. Yeah. Right? Because you're just angry, but you're not allowing it to be fixed. Is that?
You're angry and you're attaching it. Your brain is trying to attach it to something that doesn't require you putting yourself in a position to be rejected. So it's giving you an explanation for the anger without giving you access to action that's going to change it.
Okay. And then what's the next step? So you recognize this now. How do I actually allow the receiving? I don't know if that is the next step.
So it's not the next. I mean, what will start to happen is just from having accurate information is you'll stop overgiving so much, or you'll stop extending yourself, because you'll start to have a real understanding of what's true for you, right? And you'll start to put boundaries in place, which is a process. It's not going to happen instantly. But the next step then, the next tactical step that I often explain to people to really dig into is give yourself a half an hour by yourself and download a list of what you truly desire, like every little thing, and not make it reasonable, not make it anything other than like, I want my house to clean itself. I want, whatever it is, like just get it all down on paper. Really give yourself permission to have desires. Mm-hmm. If you can get in touch with what you're truly feeling and what you truly desire, that almost always opens up huge awareness of what to do next.
Is there any need here to be reasonable at any point? Or at what point do you figure out what you can really do next?
Well,
so I want a pony, but I don't think that's in my future. So
right. Well, let's say you say, like, I feel a deep desire. I want a pony, right? So then you got to say, okay, how can I get a pony? Right. And you might be like, well, I mean, I could use my money. That doesn't feel good. I could, just open up for it, open up for the possibility and just say, okay, universe, I would like a pony. And then you just let it go from there. And then what you're really doing is saying, okay, if it's for my highest good, let it come in. Right.
All right. So maybe we need to consider what's good for us too.
Yes, but not in up here. Don't let your brain decide what's good for you.
Okay.
Like your brain will always limit you. So you really want to come from the soul place. You sort of just want to say, like, and here's the other differentiator. If it comes from your body, the desire, you feel the desire down below the neck, that's typically a true desire.
It's more authentic.
If you feel it up here, it's an ego desire. So it probably isn't necessarily good for you. I mean, it might not be bad for you, but like, it's probably not for your highest path. But I can promise you, if you truly desire a pony is in your future. It is in your future.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right. I love it. So I love that you're helping women and you've come on such a journey, but what's next for you? What do you see in your future?
So my father passed away last year, and it was a pretty, like, I miss him, but it was a very freeing, a freeing event, because there is a piece of my childhood that I probably would not have written about while he was still alive. He never abused me. It was nothing like that. It was just really being honest about what made me become this control freak. And so now that he is gone, I mean, I actually, talk to him. I am writing a book that is the process I've taken to get from this place of being this very control-oriented, scheduled rule follower to getting to this place where I'm very open and allowing a lot of goodness. And that book will be out later this year, and it's called Space for Magic.
Space for Magic. Okay. Will that be available on Amazon?
When it comes out, it will be.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining today. Everyone go check out that book. It'll be out soon. And thank you so much for your advice. It's very, I don't know, I feel a charge from it. It's very helpful. So thank you.
Thanks, Lee.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.